Twitter does serve a purpose, and if you can't get on it, you are being harmed, I think. And that's a lot of responsibility, and we know with great power comes great responsibility. You would say that both Google and Facebook, and how did they both know that this article was so disturbing that of course, they're not the only ones that aren't talking about it either. It's kind of across the board.
You know, in antitrust law, there's a concept called conscious parallelism, which is you have major players in an oligopoly who are behaving similarly, even if they're not necessarily conversing with each other. They're just mirroring each other's actions. We see that in big tech, where these oligarchs, these modern-day oligarchs, are more and more brazen. They want Donald Trump to lose. It's not complicated what their objective is, and so their view is anything that is critical of Trump, they'll just silence. But that's the reason why last week I announced, along with Judiciary Committee Chairman Lindsey Graham, that the Judiciary Committee will be voting on subpoenas to subpoena Jack Dorsey and Mark Zuckerberg to come testify before us before the election, because the election interference here it is really brazen and it's dangerous. You know, you mentioned a minute ago my book, One Vote Away, How a Single Supreme Court Seat Can Change History. There's an entire chapter on that book on free speech and on the efforts to take away your rights of free speech, my rights of free speech. That book has became the #1 bestseller in the country on Amazon because I think people really care about how do we protect our rights and what are the threats to our constitutional rights right now today, because they are very much hanging in the balance.
Right. Senator, how does that view square with, oftentimes you've talked about the wonders of free markets, and also in the context of thinking about what a breakup would do to solve the problem you're talking about? You know, there are newsstands that carry certain newspapers and magazines and others, and there are other newsstands that don't. And I would imagine you would support that as a free market decision of somebody who owns those newsstands.
So, yes, I'm a big believer in the free market. And how to solve this problem is complicated. It is very complicated, and it doesn't fit into neat silos under the law. Nobody wants to see, here's the outcome that would be terrible. Nobody wants to see a federal speech police. If the federal government were suddenly deciding what speech was okay and what speech wasn't, that would be a terrible, terrible outcome. There are at least, however, 3 possible remedies, and I've chaired multiple hearings examining these in depth. Number 1, Section 230 of the Communications Decency Act. That is a special immunity from liability that big tech gets that nobody else gets. They can't be sued. And it was a gift. It's a subsidy from the taxpayers to big tech. It was passed when they were just nascent, a nascent industry. They're now the largest corporate behemoths on the face of the planet. And Section 230 was passed with a background and an assumption that they would be neutral, that they would be like the town square. They wouldn't be actively censoring users and censoring the press. They've long ago abandoned that model, and they've decided to brazenly censor. If they're going to do that, there's no reason they should have that immunity from liability. Number 2, under the antitrust law, breaking up monopolies that are abusing antitrust power, abusing monopoly power has long been an authority and a responsibility of the federal government. And number 3, there's a remedy that sounds really in breach of contract and consumer deception. And the basic argument is as follows. When you sign up to a social media company and you follow someone, your understanding is you're going to see what they post, what they tweet. If they follow you, they're going to see what you post and what you tweet. Well, social media companies have decided to break that fundamental promise, to deceive consumers, because now if they disagree with what you say, they block your followers from seeing what you say. They throttle what you say. They shadow ban you. And the consumers have no choice in this. It's a bait and switch based on deception, and it's not for the consumer's benefits. It's to collect more power in Silicon Valley. I think this is the single biggest threat to free speech, to a free media, and to our democracy that we have in our country.
Shepard Smith here. Thanks for watching CNBC on YouTube.